Welcome to Emerging Motherhood. It's been a minute. I've missed you. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for listening. I will eventually explain the long break because it wasn't just me like giving up or not having content or anything like that. There's literally been 6 million things going on in my life that made it impossible to really pour into anything else because you can't pour from an empty cup. So when I started this podcast, I was not even divorced yet. I was still literally in the thick of it. I don't know that I even fully understood what I had gone through and what I was experiencing. There was still a little bit of like, yeah, that's other women, not me, you know? And I don't think I like fully paused enough. So, you know, that's the short of it. There's a much longer version and much more that goes on, and there will be episodes to kind of cover all of them. I will talk about that motherfucking dress and that viral video from TikTok. More on that at the end. Yeah, I've been managing life, and I know you get that. So thank you for your patience and thank you for coming back. Instead of just like jumping into the heavy life shit, let's go on a little date first. I want to warm you up. Let's have a little appetizer. I just want to get my feet wet, I guess. Tell you about, some shit I've been doing. I've been watching some wacky movies. I've actually watched this documentary years ago. I think I watched it even while I was married. I just know that I've seen this documentary way before this. And I've watched it a few times because it's the wildest love story that I've ever. And it's not a love story, is the thing. People present it as a love story. This is the wildest story of fucking abuse and someone being let down by everyone around them, and how she got through it. And I got fucking opinions on this woman. This is the craziest fucking story I've ever heard. Okay. And this is the documentary that I watched is called Crazy Love, and it's on Docs, the Docs channel, and it's like a subscription on whatever. So the documentary is called Crazy Love, and it's the love story between Burt, Pugach, and Linda Riss. They met in 1957. This is pretty important to everything. Like, you have to understand the time that this was happening. Women were not allowed to have their own bank accounts until the 1960s. And that happened on like a state-by-state basis here, there, and everywhere. Women could not open their own bank accounts or not be discriminated against based on their gender until the Equal Credit Opportunity Act of 1974. So when these two people met in 1957, her goal for finding men, there was quite a bit of financial security that you're looking for, because how else are you going to make it in life as a woman? You can't just like love someone. No, because it's not like maybe I'll make it, you know what I mean, in these situations now. Nah. Like, you had to get married as a means to actually have any sort of life for yourself, any sort of financial stability. So while Burt was not a good looking man, he was awkward and weird. He was also 10 years older than her. When he meets her, he like instantly falls in love because she's the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. He's just like, going crazy. She looks like Elizabeth Taylor, and it sucks because when you listen to it, he doesn't say anything about who she is as a person. All he ever spoke about was how beautiful she was, how beautiful, physically beautiful, physical, beauty, outside. He doesn't mention anything about the person she is. And in the documentary, you learn who this woman is, and she sounded like she was an independent, strong fucking woman. Anyway, they meet. She's kind of annoyed with him. Like, literally they meet and he sends her a dozen roses to her house. So he like comes on strong and hard real fast from the jump. Like, he's, red flags right away. Like, what is your deal? Because he was an attorney. He was also like, he helped produce movies. So he had just been overseas in Europe. The average income at that time was about $4,000 a year. That was like what the average person made. This homie was making $80,000 a year. So he was like a bajillionaire. Yeah, the average person made about $4,000 a year. He was making about $80,000 a year back in the 50s. So this dude had a lot of money. He was an attorney. He was powerful. He had connections. He owned a nightclub in the area where like Johnny Mathis and like people of the time would go and perform, and he would walk in with her, and as soon as they walked into the club, he made sure that the band always knew the second you see me walking in with her, you play this fucking old song, Linda, her name. So every time she walked in, it was this huge grand entrance. Like, talk about fucking love bombing the fuck out of her. Just, holy shit, the fucking, I want you and I'm gonna, no, just pour everything out for you. And because financial security is literally one of the most important reasons a woman looks for a man in those days, she fell for it. She's like, all right, cool, I'm down. The first time she tells her grandmother about him, she's like, I don't know if he's that good looking. And the grandmother's like, listen, he's an attorney. It sounds like he's got some money. I don't give a shit. If he's better looking than the devil, girl, get him. Just, it don't matter. He's got money and he's successful. Get him. And then as they're dating and the grandmother is seeing this behavior and Linda's, kind of talking, she's kind of falling for it, but kind of not. You can hear the like, in her. The grandmother's like, you know what? How the fuck is he single? He's 10 years older than you. How did somebody not snatch him up already? This isn't true. They realize he's married. This motherfucker, and here's the thing, and he admits to all this in the documentary. Like, he readily owns up to all of his shitty behavior. He's like, yeah, I knew that she found out, so I beat her to the chase. I was like, yo, listen, I'm married. I want to get a divorce, but blah, blah, blah. He's like playing her along. Literally future faking. He's like, no, I'm going to leave her. I want to be with you, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, Linda's like a pretty stand-up woman. She's like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to be with somebody who has a wife. When you get a divorce, hit me up, but I'm gonna do me. He's like, no, bet, I got it. I'm gonna get the divorce now. The next day, he's like, look, I got the papers. And she's like, you fucking got the what? Her not being an idiot, she writes down the fucking divorce number that he gives her. But looking at it, it looks like real paper. So she's like, you are an attorney. Like, I've seen you do big, powerful things. Maybe it's possible. So she's like, okay. Again, if I were to settle up with you, I'm going to be really financially secure. So she's like, okay, sure, we'll continue dating because you've given me some proof. And because in the back of her mind, she knew she could get that shit checked out. Okay, but they don't have the internet. It's the 1950s. So she gives it to her mom to give to an attorney. They send a letter to the state of Alabama, blah, blah, blah. Weeks go by. And she's still dating him. She's falling in love. She's like, wow, this is amazing. Like, okay, he really did get the divorce. He did it. Like, okay, like, this is awesome. She's falling for it. Comes back. No, he's still fucking married. She's like, you know what? Fuck you. I can't do this. She tries breaking up with him again. No, and he's still, no, please, please, please. That's because it was in Alabama. No, I'm getting a divorce here in New York. No, it's just the confusion of the papers. Don't worry, blah, blah, blah. She's like, I'm fucking done. I'm done with you. I'm done. When she found out the divorce wasn't real, she leaves. She goes, has a hot girl summer. She goes to Florida with her friends. She finds a new man, Larry. She's like super in love with him, but he has to go off to be in the army. But she's like, fuck you. She moved the fuck on. When I tell you this woman is like super independent, like, okay, well, fine, bye. She's genuinely like never that into him. She's always like, I guess. Like, he's always he just never leaves her the fuck alone. And she meets this other guy. She falls in love. Their little romance couldn't last. But when he comes back out of the army, he finds her again. And she's like, dope. Burt is out of my life. You came back from the army. Let's do this. And then it's sweet because the thing she liked about Larry was he was a normal guy. He drove an old station wagon. They were going to live a normal life. Their dates were normal. They would just hang out with each other. He would take her to his family. And she liked it. She was like, she could see the difference. She was like, oh, this calmer pace, this like slower get to know you pace. Oh, I like this. And she liked Larry. And her and Larry get engaged. And she is, it's everything. She's so excited. Like, maybe she's not going to live this lavish lifestyle, but if they're going to live okay, they'll live a nice, happy little modest life. And she's going to be happy. And everybody's happy. And she's in love and he's in love. And this is great. And she has a big, beautiful engagement party. And the morning after her engagement party, the doorbell rings. She's getting ready for work. Her mom answers and says, oh, somebody's at the door with a gift for you. It was an engagement party gift. So they call her to the door. She's still getting ready for work, tying her hair up in a bow. And she walks up to the door like, yeah, but, so excited thinking, she's going to celebrate. And the guy throws lie in her eyes. And I guess the way he threw it, because understanding the way they describe her disfigurement, because you don't ever see it, she never fully shows her scars. She is blinded in both of her eyes and she's bald. So I guess the way he threw it like right in her eyes and face. And since her hands were behind her back because she was fixing her hair trying to get ready for work, it's not like she could block it or anything. So she wears wigs and she wears really thick sunglasses to hide the disfigurement. And that was just something she figured out to do when she healed. But literally, even as she's healing in the hospital, Burt is like, I'm so sorry. Because he was the one who paid to have this attack done to her. He decided, like, well, if I can't have her, nobody will. Once he found out she was engaged, he went to her dad to be like, yo, get your daughter in line, okay? Remember me, Moneybags over here? I'm going to hook you guys up. He goes to her dad, like, trying to get his advice, or I don't know what the goal was. But he went to her dad asking for his help to get Linda to be with him. And the dad was like, well, you're too late because she already started engaged to that guy we had the party yesterday. That's when he decides to fucking hire somebody. He says his defense to this day, he still is like, well, I didn't want them to hurt her that bad. I just wanted them to beat her up. Like, watching the whole movie is so disgusting because he has this air of, he understands it's a documentary and they want to hear the sad story. And he thinks that his sadness is part of that sad story. He definitely, like, when he's telling a story about how when he gets arrested, he's like, and they put me in the paddy wagon and it's such a hard car and then they handcuffed me to this other guy. He's telling the story with so much pain for his own self. Mind you, he was married this whole time. Married and had a child. The wife that he was originally married to had given birth to a daughter of his, but the daughter was disabled. So he was just like, I don't want either one of you. So that's when he's like starting to pursue Linda like fucking crazy, just stalking her, just never leaving her alone. Even when they were dating, he was just like the most overwhelming person when they were dating. As soon as she was like, okay, fine, we can date, he would pick her up in the morning and take her to work. And then magically when it was lunchtime, he would appear at her job like, hey, babe, you want to go get lunch? And then when it was time to get out of work, oh, conveniently, he was there to give her a ride home. And so she even says, like, at first it was really flattering, but then it became stifling, like, ugh. Here's the thing that's really frustrating about her story, is that she recognized it. She could see the red flags. She even says, I am the only person who knew how much danger I was in, and nobody would believe me. Like, she was doing everything right. You know, every time he manipulated her or lied to her, she was like, this is over. At one point, his wife called her and was like, listen, girl, you're making this so much harder than it has to be. Be with him, enjoy him, have fun, spend his money. I just want to be his wife because I want to share in that too. Like, I really don't care. We got a daughter. I want to take care of her. Like, just, you have my permission. Just date, keep him busy and entertained for me. I don't really want him. I just want the financial security, but you can have him. And she was like, this is the wildest situation. No. And that's why Linda noped out of the situation. Like, she was doing everything right at every turn. Never was she the girl. Even her friends say she was beautiful. She did have the pick of men. She was a flirty girl. Lots of guys liked her. She had a bit of a reputation, but she always cleared it up. Like, she just sounds like a real badass. And this guy wanted it. He wanted that energy. He wanted to, like, he just, ugh, it's just so gross. He just wouldn't leave her alone. So that's when he fucking attacks her with a lie. Once he knows, like, oh, she's engaged, there's no chance. And he even said, if I can't have her, nobody will, and I'll make sure nobody even wants her if they could. So if I'm not going to kill you, I'll make sure you're disfigured in some way. You're damaged in some way. And sure enough, he went through with that fucking threat. Because abuse does not ever de-escalate. That shit gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And the thing is, she didn't ignore, it's not like she was ignoring the red flags. She just didn't have help. She would go to the police. She even says it. The amount of times she went to the police begging them to protect her from all of his stalking. He would throw rocks at her. Like, before the lie attack, he was constantly threatening her, calling her friends, calling her, like, literally threatening, like, if you don't fucking you watch what's gonna fucking happen if you don't give in and be with me. And she would go to the police every time. The police were like, well, he's a powerful man, he's an attorney. Well, I mean, he didn't actually do anything. Everybody just letting her down. Everybody. She's like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? And now the dude throws acid in her face. So She does participate in the trial to get him arrested. I mean, and when she's talking about it, she still talks about it with like anger and contempt in her voice, in her face. Like when she has to recall what he did to her and the trial and everything, you could tell that she is fucking pissed that this happened. Rightfully so. So they go through the trial. 1957 is when they first meet. 1959 is when she's attacked. So it's only fucking 2 years that this guy gets to this fucking point. In 1961, that's when he was finally found guilty and sent to prison. And she begins a new life. Homegirl's like, okay, well, fuck you. She packs her bags and is like, I'm going to start over even new. She goes to overseas to like London and Italy and shit and is like romping around because she's like, yo, these people wear some stylish ass glasses. She got thick ass black rim glasses, like, you know, real, and she had a bunch, like, mad different styles and shit to match her outfit. She was just like, I'm gonna rock it. I'm gonna take this weakness and turn it into a strength, make it mad stylish, got mad wigs and shit. She looked cute as fuck. And this bitch gets a fucking hobby. During the trial, she becomes a fucking painter because he didn't destroy her vision. Like, she still had some vision in her right eye. So she started, like, painting, and they show her paintings, and they were, like, pretty fucking good. Like, I would buy one and hang it on my wall. The resilience and the strength and the independence that this woman showed through this horrific event is amazing. That's not the end of the fucking story, though. So she's living in Italy. She's romping around. She meets this dude. He's like, I love you. I want to be with you. I want you to meet my family. Like, I want to do this. I want to marry you. Let's go. And she decides, like, okay, I want to give this a chance. So she's like, well, I need him to know the truth before we do this. So she reveals her face, her eyes to him. Here's the thing. She doesn't explain how this goes down. I don't know if she prefaced him. I don't know if she warned him in any way. She kind of makes it sound like she just threw on some clear glasses and was like, yo, what up? We cool? Also, you know, who knows the caliber of man this was? Because I have enough faith in humanity that there is somebody that would have found her and loved her regardless of the scars. But this guy rejects her. And that was just a little bit too much for her. She goes home because Larry, the dude she was originally engaged to, he's with her through the healing process when she originally got the scars and when she was originally injured. She tries to tell Larry, you know what, you don't got to do this. You know, you don't have to be with me. And he's like, no, I want to be with you. I love you. And he stays with her like while she's like healing and recovering. But as soon as she's like mostly recovered and she's home and she's feeling good, he was like, I can't do this anymore. And he breaks up with her. So Larry breaks her heart. And then right after the trial, that's when she went to Europe, meets that dude. She like finally was vulnerable, opened herself up again. And then once he sees what she looks like physically, he rejects her. So she goes home and she's just like, ugh. So by 1971, she is living alone. Her eyesight's worsening. And she's no longer the independent person she once was. Like, it's starting to wear her down. And by the way, in 1961, that's when Homeboy was sent to prison. So it took 10 years for this. She took 10 years exploring, searching, trying to find love, blah, 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 blah. By 1971, that's when she came back home and was just trying to, like, live. Homeboy Burt is still harassing her from jail. He's literally sending her love letters all the time, like, endlessly, calling her from jail. He's even, because he's an attorney, he is even starting lawsuits against her, like suing her for shit, just to force her to respond. Because the way the law works, if somebody says something, legally, you have to respond, because if you don't respond, the court thinks you're agreeing to it. So she's forced to interact with him for all these years. Like, it never stops. His harassment and abuse of her never fucking stops, even after the attack and after he's sent to prison. So now she's finally like, it's worn her down. She does not have anyone really loving or supporting her, including her friends, because all of her friends are moving on. Her friend, one of her closest friends, is like,
oh, the attack happened like the week of my wedding, so it was like one of the happiest times of my life, but also one of the worst.
Like, the way the people around her failed her so horribly, it like makes me question humanity. But anyway, by 1973, she's, just living life. What the fuck do I do now? He reaches out to her through a friend. She's like, well, what the fuck is he reaching out to me for? If you don't have money for me, she's kind of like, she says something funny. She says, show your good faith. You know, send me some fucking money. I'm out here, you know, living like a fucking peasant because of what you fucking did to me. And now I'm here broke as fuck because of what you did to me. Send me some, shut your mouth and show me some fucking money. So he's like, okay. Because homeboy had been doing like legal services in jail. He actually was weirdly, insanely smart. He had an IQ of 133, which is technically super intelligent. Like the group Mensa, their requirement is 132 or above. So he is not psychotic. He is outrageously intelligent and ill-intentioned. Do you know what I mean? He's not fucking crazy. A psychiatrist that knew him was like, this motherfucker ain't crazy. He was a client of his when he was an attorney. And he was like, nah, I spent time with him. He's not fucking crazy. He's just smart as fuck. And he wants what he wants. This is a man with the utmost need for power and control. And because he had the money and position he had, he could get away with it. So while he was in jail, he had these fucking rough motherfuckers from the mafia in New York in with him because he was in Attica. In 1971, there was a riot in Attica. It's like famous, like you could look at it, it's historical. If you don't know shit about this story, you've probably heard about the prison Attica in the 1971 riot. He was there for that riot. All those fucking gangsters and mafia men that were there, he was helping get them off their charges. He looked up fucking criminal law, was figuring shit out, reading over their documents, helping them catch loopholes and shit. He helped overturn 3 murder convictions from prison. They had to put him in solitary confinement because he was fucking shit up too much, like legally and like the proper right way, because he was just a really smart, bad person. So because when he reaches out to her and she's like, well, what the fuck, why don't you fucking send me some money, shut the fuck up. He's like, okay. Now he starts charging people in jail for his services because he's proven what he can do. In 2 weeks, he sends her $4,000. Okay, in 1973, that's when he sends her the first check for $4,000. In that year, 1973, the average income for men was about $11,400, and the average annual income for working women was $6,490. This happens in 1973 when he sends her the first check. She still could not get her own bank account if she wanted to because the Equal Credit Opportunity Act didn't pass until 1974. So this woman is blind, disabled. All her friends are busy getting married and living their own lives. Like, not one of them gave a fuck to try to, like, support her or be there for her. No women empowering women back then. It was like, sorry, bitch, I got mine. And then it would just peace out on you. Like, I got my man, you're stuck without yours. Which I get it because it's not like they could open bank accounts and shit, but like she grew up with all women. Her mother, her grandmother, her aunts, you know what I mean? It was all women. They could have bonded together a little bit more than they did. So imagine somebody sends you a check for like, you know, basically like 80% of what your annual salary is. She's like, okay, thank you. But he was still in prison. And actually, no, she wrote to she hated him so much, even after sending her that much money. She wrote to the prison board and was like,
look, he fucking is still harassing me. He sent me a check for $4,000. Not only is he in there charging me, how the fuck, first of all, how is he making a second?
You know what I mean? She tries to get him in so much trouble. You know what the fucking parole board does? They're like, did you really fucking send her that money? If we let you out, would you continue sending her money? He's like, yeah, if I have it, sure, I'll give her whatever I can. They're like, okay, they released him. September was when he sent her the check. By March of 74, he was paroled. He spent 14 years in prison. For 14 years in prison, this man harassed this woman. And then he's finally released. One of the conditions of his release was he wasn't allowed to contact her. What does this motherfucker decide to do? Of course, everybody in the news wants to reach out to him. They want to know the story. They want to get the scoop. They want the interview. He goes on interviews and fucking proposes to her on every journalist that gave him an opportunity. And what's shitty is the journalist recounts the story like laughing, like this is funny, like this wasn't some woman's actual fucking life. Recounting the story, talking about, oh yeah, and he proposed on air. And sure enough, it did open a foothold because her friends that were like, I don't want to help take care of her, I don't want to help take care of her, she needs a man, she needs a man. They fucking arrange to have her meet him and give Burt another chance. Like, well, he proposed marriage and like, I bet like maybe something will happen. Like, what are you supposed to do? all the people around you that you're looking to for counsel, for help, for advice, for anything, support, they all keep like playing hot potato with you. This woman, I felt so bad for her in this part. So fuck it. She's with him. She gets back together with him. Within 5 months of dating, they're married, they're back together. And it's wild because even back then, she was like on the Geraldo Rivera show. You know, they're all over the news. People magazine, all these things. In everything, she even said like, well, I know I love him, I just don't like to use that word. Like, even watching the movie that she's giving the story, you know, she's recounting, in the documentary, she's recounting the story, you know, 30 years after it happened. She's saying, I wanted him to fucking rot. You can see the anger and disdain for him as she talks about him in those moments. But I see, like, what the fuck else was she supposed to do? So they got married. They're living life. And then 1996 comes. He's accused of the same thing again. A woman comes out and accuses him of the same thing. And his fucking threats to her were real. He's telling her, you know what I did to my wife, I'll do it to you. He's like using it as fucking clout now. And what does Linda do? This is when I'm like, okay, you're a stupid bitch. And this is where you become complicit because, and hear me out, because I've been in a shitty situation. I've been in an abusive relationships. There does come a point where you are complicit and you know what's happening. You know you're being abused and now you're just sitting in it. And you need to take personal responsibility to get out. And, you know, going back to the beginning of the podcast and the break that I took, I started this podcast when I was in therapy. And this was actually almost like one of my therapeutic, like, activities that I was doing. Like, I talked about starting it while I was in therapy. And then I did like the first couple episodes, like while I was in therapy with her. And it was therapy through a domestic violence shelter. So it wasn't really like emotions and feelings. It was power and control. How can I feel like I have power over myself and my autonomy? And how can I feel like I have control over my life and my decisions and like my thoughts and my mind? And so that's what this podcast was. And it was a way for me to pour into that thinking of reclaiming my voice and everything. So I am speaking from a place of, I'm not speaking at anybody. I'm coming even from my own personal understanding. There comes a point where you need to take personal responsibility for the situation you're in. Even in therapy, I learned that the only way I can take back my power and control is to say, you know what? I was making the decision to stay in that relationship once I could see all these red flags, and giving myself credit to say, you know what? And once I became aware enough of those red flags and how they were affecting myself and those around me, I made the decision to leave. So in 1996, when her husband is now telling another woman, watch out, doing exactly what he did to her, she should have stood up and said something. Now, this was 1996, okay? We were on the up and up. I want to believe that there would have been some support for her available if she would have stood up for this other woman and defended her, but instead she didn't. She shit all over this woman. She literally took the stand in defense of her husband, said what an amazing man he was, called him her best buddy. She went on all the news stations and just defended his behavior. She was like,
So what? He cheated. He was, you don't cheat? You guys aren't cheating on your wives? Everybody has affairs. What are you talking about? Like, he was just stupid enough to get caught. You're just like, you didn't get caught. Okay? Please.
She's literally defending him. Knowing everything that, I mean, she literally cannot see and she's defending him. Abuse can wear you down. It will change you. In the end of the movie, they ask her, do you think he would ever cheat on you again? And she says,
oh, no way. He knows I'd kick him to the curb again. He knows I would.
You never kicked him to the curb in the first place. You never, he cheated on you and you stayed, and here we are. And she stayed with him until her dying day. She died at 75 years old, still married to him. And it's wild. She even says, because they show little clips of them and they're kind of bickering, and she just nitpicks at him, and it does look a little bit miserable. And she even says, well, this is what he gets. I feel like this is a little bit of his punishment. This is a little bit of my revenge. Like, I think this woman gave up on life and just decided, like, well, this is my only chance. But looking at her story, I do think it's sad that she had a chance to stand up and make a difference and she didn't. I just think it's interesting to look at stories and being able to pull some truth out for yourself, because of course movies are not made from the average everyday story. Like,
oh, this girl went to work and then her boyfriend was like kind of shitty to her. Like, he didn't beat her, he didn't throw lye in her eyes, he didn't, slice her throat or anything like that, but he was like kind of shitty to her, so she broke up with him, she had a little blow up, and she's doing great in life now.
No, they don't make movies about that because it's not an extraordinary story. It's a normal, everyday, average shit. Movies are made about these huge, extraordinary stories, and I think it's meant because obviously that's going to be the most entertaining thing, but try to scale that shit down and pull out some truths for your own life so that you're learning from it. It's not just entertainment. It's also like, wow, I do remember that dude or that girl that was like super great in the beginning and like, really was the greatest, and then it kind of got shitty, and then there was that one time that they crossed the line, and I thought it was just an excuse, and so I just kind of went along with it, and then I tried to break up with them a couple times, but they kept on. Like, also shitty friends. Like, homeboy had friends. There's a quote, all it takes for evil to prevail in this world is for good men to do nothing. Homeboy's closest friend that was like in the documentary, he thought this was the funniest shit ever. He talks about it with a laugh on his face, the whole fucking story, the whole fucking documentary. Homeboy's got a little chuckle on his face. He even says in the end, he's like, well, even Hitler had friends. Bob was a fun friend to have. He just liked having a front row seat to all the drama. And he even said at one point, like, oh, she was smart to not give in to his passes. It's just the wildest story. And then all the journalists that were there covering the story of the attack were the same ones covering their reconnection. And then they were the same ones there covering the 1996 event. And none of them take any personal responsibility for the way they painted the story. It's a wild, wild story. And I hope you can learn from it that this woman was trying, I'm not even trying to be cheesy, she was trying to emerge motherhood. She was like, all right, fuck it, I'll have a hot girl summer in Europe. Fuck it, I'll learn to wear some sunglasses. Fuck it, I'll fucking learn how to get around blind. Fuck it, I'll learn how to paint. Like, who cares? Like, no one's gonna stop me. And like, just there wasn't support around her. There wasn't the other part where there were some other people empowering her to succeed, So I think the documentary paints it a little too cutesy, and when I look at the story, my heart is really sad for that woman, for everything she became. She became exactly what I think she would have. She just became everything she was against. And then she died. And that's shitty. And I don't know. We just need friends. We need better friends in this world that provide support and are willing to walk through this shit with you. So, with that said, I do want to touch on the TikTok stuff and the viral video. I got some of the worst hate messages ever. People found me on anything I've ever posted on the internet. People found me and were like, you're a piece of shit human. You should die. I hope your children hate you. And nobody knows the entire story. The people in my life who know the story are like, wow, this is a fucked up story if people only knew. But people on TikTok, obviously you don't know the whole fucking story. It just got one little video, got taken off, made it on the Shade Room, went super, super, super duper viral. And people had some really ugly comments to say. And just recently, Twitch, the DJ from Ellen, at 40 years old, I'm 40, I just turned 40. He took his own life because, for whatever reason. And so, I have taken a step back from everything, social media, podcasting, everything, to make sure that my mental health stays above board. It's hard to log on and see such hateful comments. And I think for a while I got lost. And I spent, like, if you watch the dress video and then you kind of watch all the subsequent videos, I spend a lot of time just talking to all the haters and, like, trying to prove to these people that, like, no, that's not how it is. No, it should be like this. But, like, there's always going to be people who don't like you. There's always going to be people that disagree with you, regardless of how true what you're saying is. I get it. You see it the other way. I get it. But it was hard. I mean, I literally had people doxing me. People called my job. Or like, your employee's making TikToks at work. People called my phone, leaving me messages, you're a fat bitch. Like, I'm literally just a person in Denver who does this. And like, it's not, I'm, just because I'm on TikTok and on podcasting and YouTube and stuff, there's no like built-in protections. And so sometimes people are really mean, and it felt good to step away. I was also in a relationship that I thought was wonderful and magical, and it wasn't. So yeah, I just had a bunch of things happen in life. I'll have another episode with like a complete update just so that people aren't curious. But in the meantime, if you're bored, go ahead and watch that documentary, Crazy Love. It is a fucking wild story. Or just Google them, because actually the documentary is better than Googling them. But otherwise, I hope you're doing well. I've missed you, and I can't wait to fill you in on everything that has happened and everything that is yet to come. Thank you for being here with me. Blessings to you, my